Um, so yeah, number 6 is the Rolling Stones. Now, like Led Zeppelin, you've probably heard of the Rolling Stones before because they've been around forever. I think they have started their professional career like they had a record deal in 1962. I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that. But yeah, they've been around since the early 60s and they're still touring. They're getting pretty old now. They're pushing their 70s. But yeah, they're such an iconic band, and they're one of those bands that didn't really have a specific style and just kind of played music. Like they started off with a lot of blues covers, and then they got like into rock and roll. Uh, and they eventually did some country and some little more heavy blues. Uh, and I think they did like some kind of disco thing. But yeah, they did stuff all around, and I mean, the main attraction, the main attractions, should I say, of the band are Mick Jagger on lead vocals, who is a timeless frontman, and he is totally fearless on stage. Like, watch any footage of them live, and you'll see what I mean. And Keith Richards on guitar, who co-writes pretty much all the songs with Mick Jagger. Um, he played in open G tuning, which means that if you strummed a guitar like an open chord on a guitar, meaning you don't put your fingers on any of the frets, it would make a G chord, which isn't the standard tuning. So it resulted in a different sound than most guitarists. And like Jimmy Page, he's created a lot of riffs. Um, I would say listen to the song Satisfaction. If you haven't listened to it, I mean, I can't really imagine that you haven't heard it. Brown Sugar is an awesome song. So is Sympathy for the Devil. And I'd say Paint It Black and Honky Tonk Woman. Yeah, those are all fantastic songs. And that's kind of I kind of like I think that's a good variety of all of their stuff. Um, yeah, so number 5 is Yes. That's the name of the band. Yes. Uh, remember how I talked about prog rock? So these guys are the king, are the kings. Like, Yes started in well, they started in like the late 60s, but they didn't get really big until their third album, the Yes album, in 1971, I believe. Um, and though that didn't have the classic lineup yet, the next album did, Fragile, which I would suggest be an introduction album. If any of you like a lot of memes like I do, if you ever seen the "To Be Continued" meme, like something bad's about to happen, and it's like do 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 boom, and then it pauses and says "To Be Continued." That song is called Roundabout, and it's the first song off of Fragile. It's a Yes song. It's probably their most famous song. Um, and I thought Led Zeppelin was an all-star band. I really got into these guys just last year, and I can't decide my favorite member of the band. The classic lineup is John Anderson on vocals, who um, he's like an angel. Like he's literally like an angel. Like I've talked about how Ozzy Osbourne from Black Sabbath, I can easily picture him crawling out of the pits of hell like when he sings because he's just like so dark and menacing. I feel like John Anderson is the total opposite of that. When I hear him sing, I just see him floating down from the heavens, right? Uh, and then you have Chris Squire, who's the co-founder of the band along with John, and he has probably the most iconic bass tone ever. Um, he is truly a progressive bass player. Nothing he does is standard when it comes to bass playing. Like, rather than just play the root note like a normal bass player would, he will play the third or make it a diminished, or just amazing stuff like that. And he also had some speed in there, which is really good. You know, kept it interesting. And then you have the classical part of the band, Steve Howe on guitar. And I think it's because of him that I see a lot of, all right, sorry, I hear a lot of classical um, elements in, in their songs. And that's because he's kind of a classical player. He can play pretty fast, but I mean, really, the only other way I can describe it is in a classical way. Um, and then Rick Wakeman is an awesome keyboardist. Now he's really where the speed comes, but also in just one song, he'll have 16 different sounds coming out of that keyboard, like different settings or whatever. I don't know what he does, but it works. And then Bill Bruford is the classic drummer. Alan White was also considered a classic drummer, but he didn't join till later. Alan White's pretty good, but Bill Bruford is, I think, a little bit better. He also played for King Crimson and Asia, which was a supergroup, who I believe Steve Howe was in as well. Um, for albums, like I said, Fragile is a great one to start off with, and if you like Fragile and you want to hear more, listen to Close to the Edge. That's the greatest prog album of all time, in my opinion. I'm just saying. And then once again, if you're into songs more, then Roundabout is a great song if you haven't heard the whole song. If you want to get a little more poppy, what they did in the 80s is a song called Owner of a Lonely Heart. I've Seen All Good People is a really, really, really fun song. And Starship Trooper. So, yeah.